When we think of wildlife conservation, we often picture vast national parks, million-dollar budgets, and international organizations with armies of researchers. However, some of the most powerful conservation stories are written by small-time operators working with limited resources, big hearts, and an unshakable belief in their mission. The truth is, you don't need millions of dollars and acres to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is passionate people and a creative idea to create a ripple effect that transforms an entire ecosystem. The breathtaking scenery of the Matobo Hills in southwestern Zimbabwe, with its multitude of massive round granite domes with gigantic boulders of various sizes balanced on top, creating what looks like natural art, has been sculpted over millions of years by sun, wind, and water. The hills, known locally as koppies, fall into two main categories: the balancing castle koppies, formed by rock, splitting along natural lines of weakness, and the great smooth whalebacks or dwellas, formed by curved joints running parallel to the surface. The Matobo Hills have been inhabited for thousands of years, with archaeological evidence dating back to at least the early Stone Age, around 300,000 BC. The Sand People occupied the area about 2,000 years ago, leaving a rich legacy of incredibly varied rock art. The art primarily depicts animals and human figures, often in complex scenes. The Matobo Hills have diverse wildlife, including the highest concentration of leopards in the world. Research estimates one leopard every 5 square kilometers. The Matobo Hills are not just a natural wonder, but also have spiritual significance for the Ndebele people. Sacred shrines to their ancestral spirits have been placed within the hills to communicate with the mystical world. Within the Matobo Hills is a unique conservation venture involving a partnership between private enterprise and the local people, sustainable wildlife use, domestic livestock husbandry, and community upliftment projects.
We're situated west of Bulawayo, just south of Plumtree on the Botswana border. In a straight line, we're about 5, probably 10 kilometers from the Botswana border from where we are right now. We have a history in this area. We've had a lot of our family that ranched cattle and so on in the region. And my brother and I attended a very famous high school called Plumtree, only about 50 kilometers from here. So on our off weekends, we used to walk out and hunt and fish in all these areas. So this whole region is pretty special to us. We got involved here. Obviously, we had an interest in the areas here because of our upbringing and so on. But we basically started talks with the local community and the district council, and we also dealt with the Ministry of Lands to form a partnership with the community so that we could utilize some of the government land here, whereby we could build up wildlife in certain areas and then help the community to ranch their cattle more efficiently in other parts of the area. So this is like a joint project that we are doing together with the local community. When we first started here, the roads were non-existent. They hadn't been opened in probably 30 years. So we had a lot of work just reopening old roads and then putting in a lot of new roads that could help us access water points, and also, especially for the anti-poaching and being able to get around to monitor the fence, pick up tracks. So a lot of time has been spent in accessing the property by opening up new and old roads. When we first started here, almost 5 years ago, there was little to no wildlife, apart from migratory elephant and some cattle-killing leopard. A herd of impala would have been 2 or 3 animals. We never saw a zebra in the first 3 years. Kudu were almost extinct. You'd see the odd track. So for the first 4 years, all we did was anti-poaching, and the wildlife increased quite rapidly, not only from being able to breed up, but wildlife migrating into the protected areas that we have now. We put out camera traps on roads at different water points, and then even some of the grids where elephant and predators access the property. This has helped us get an idea of numbers and the movement of different game. Also, especially with leopard, being able to identify a specific leopard by their spot pattern. We started to actually record a database now on the different cats that we've got in the area. We now have trail cam pics of herds of over 20 zebra, herds of impala up to nearly 30. For the first time ever this year, we've got pictures of warthog on trail camera. We've actually got one picture of 5 warthogs in one picture. We never had any warthog here before. And recently we've got some trail cam pics and sightings of bushbuck, which we actually thought there were absolutely none left, but they've appeared. And we're definitely seeing more of the small antelope as well, your duiker and steenbuck, your klipspringer, which is basically just controlling the poaching. The poaching was just out of control with the dogs and torches at night. They wiped out all that small game, your spring hares, scrub hares, all that were almost gone. But they're coming back really well now with all the anti-poaching that we're doing.
Yeah, go on.
No. Okay, here we have one of our game scout camps where 3 scouts are based. They're out in the field at the moment. We have 3 based in each camp so that when they take time off, there's always 2 guys on duty. And each stick of scouts have one weapon as well for shooting poaching dogs or helping to arrest poachers. So at the moment, our scouts are staying in tents, little army tents, but we building bricks at the moment so that we can construct some permanent quarters for them that'll have 3 rooms. That way, at least in the rainy season, it's much more comfortable for them to stay. But we've almost got enough bricks to start constructing the permanent accommodation now. This is another one of our anti-poaching bases here, where we've got a couple of scouts based here and a couple of fencing guys as well that patrol the fences, checking for any breaks. We don't ever keep the anti-poaching teams the same for too long. Every couple of weeks we mix the teams up or move them from area to area. It's just, and we found that's a better way than leaving guys permanently in one spot. There's less chance of them getting too comfortable or diverting from their jobs. So initially we started actually hunting on Wilberforce and Mbakwe. And as time went on, some other opportunities arose with surrounding properties that adjoin us. And our game scouts now actually do anti-poaching patrols on those properties as well. And we aim to bring the poaching right down there and the wildlife numbers back up. And a lot of potential on those properties, which we would now like to try and include in our project. And this could increase the size from about 15,000 acres to over 30,000 acres. And obviously now in those areas we do the anti-poaching and open up all the old roads and put in new water points, things like that. Our plan is to definitely reintroduce some wildlife because, for a long period of time, the poaching here was very, very bad. So we've got some of the basic species here. There's a few kudu. They were really affected badly by the poaching. They're very easy to poach with dogs. So the numbers of kudu are still very low. We're hoping to reintroduce and increase that. We have brought in impala, wildebeest and giraffe. We'd like to bring in more. And then we'd also like to bring in other species like the eland, bushbuck, waterbuck, nyala, and get the numbers up because although we've got the basic species right now, the numbers are still pretty low. The first part of our project is we fenced off about 7,000 acres, and although that's fenced, we've left gaps in the electric fence where we've put in extended cattle grids so that the elephant can come down and drink at this big dam, because they've been drinking here for many, many years and we didn't want to stop that. So the elephant can come in and out, and the predators and baboons can also come in and out over the grids. The plains game is kept inside.
Okay, so what we're doing here, we've got a gang of guys who are opening the fence line. Initially we had just a cattle fence, a standard 4-strand cattle fence here. And then we had some giraffe come in here who we tried to keep in. We added another 2 on top just to keep the giraffe in here. However, we are getting ready to start phase 2 of the game fence, which is 11 kilometers. And in order to do that, we need to get the tractor in here to move sand and stone to set concrete and poles, and then obviously to move all the wire and stuff. So we need access to both sides of the fence. On the right here behind me is Wilberforce, and on the left is Fallowfield.
In time, we'd like to extend the fence behind those copies. Even there's other pieces of land that adjoins us that we'd actually like to include in our project here as well. I think you'd have a problem if you wanted to completely just take it over with wildlife. But, you know, the point we're trying to push with them is that you can do both, as long as you control the numbers of cattle and you don't heavily overgraze the properties and so on. But for them to realize that there is a large benefit from the wildlife. You know, maybe at a certain point they'll actually realize that, you know what, the wildlife is more valuable than our cattle. We're getting more from the game than we are our cattle.
That guy there is just incredibly frustrated because of that one cow that keeps getting through the fence. And he says that he fixes the fence daily because of it, and also because it seems to be an older cow. A lot of the cows follow it. This is what he's saying. And the cows follow it through into the property here, and he's got to constantly herd it and waste time herding cattle out instead of being able to fix the fence or look after the fence, which is his job. So he's just very frustrated.
So a group of elephant bulls crossed the fence here, but they've damaged it a little bit, broke the top 2 strands, so he's just reconnecting and tensioning them.
Very often when they break through, they break the bottom strands, but with this it slides over their back and remains in place, and that keeps the giraffe in. So even though the fence is broken, it does contain a giraffe. It's just at one top strand. The fence? Yeah.
Okay, here we have one of our elephant grids. This is our 3rd version of it. We started off first with the standard cattle grid, which goes up to about there, which worked for keeping most of the wildlife in, but some desperate cattle would still get across. So we've now extended the grid further, and we've painted the inside black, so it gives the impression that there's a deeper crevice inside than there actually is. But the idea of these grids was to ensure that we could keep the reintroduced wildlife within the fenced area, but not disrupt the movement of elephant that have been using these trails for many, many years, coming to drink at the dam. So elephant and your predators and primates can still cross here easily, which they do. But it keeps the wildlife in and it keeps the cattle out. Another reason for us putting in the grids, we've got an electric fence here. And if there were no grids where the elephant could come in and out, they would damage the fence. So what we did was we walked the entire area and then identified the most well-used elephant trails. And on those trails, we put these grids. So from the base of that mountain to the base of this mountain is probably about 2 kilometers. We've got 4 grids just on this section here. This is where a lot of the activity is. From now until sort of the rain settle in, them coming across to feed on this river and drink at the big dam. One disadvantage of the grid obviously is that humans can cross it. Poachers could cross in, but that's why it's important to have enough game scouts to patrol the fence line and the grids daily, not only for breaks or damages anywhere, but to ensure that no poachers or dogs or anything like that have crossed in, because dogs can cross a grid. So right now we're in the middle of a drought, so the grass is very, very short everywhere, and water as well. So there are a lot of hungry cattle around. You can see the cattle dung and that on that other side. So this is just a visual barrier to deter the cattle from crossing, but it doesn't affect the elephants at all. An elephant will just walk up and with his trunk just lift that and bump it out the way. And the next day when the game scouts come by, they just put it back on. But it doesn't hamper the elephant or the predators from coming in and out. As we're developing on the property, especially on the cattle section, the community actually help us with labor. We will provide them with the wire, the tools for the fencing and so on, but they'll actually come and do the job themselves in their own time, and that's up to them to get it done. We don't do everything for them. And we feel that's important because it involves them with the project, and we don't want to get to a point where people just sit back and expect everything to be given. So, everything is discussed with them, but by them actually being directly involved with the development, I think that's a good thing.
In our early discussions with the community, when we first started to get involved here, we realized that it was very important that livestock played a part in the project. And it's for that reason that we've agreed with them to assist by providing water, clean drinking water for their livestock, which they've never had. There's a small dam behind me here, about 2 kilometers, which by now is dry. And then the closest water for these guys would be 10 or 15 kilometers. It's a long way. So by providing a central water hole like this for the cattle, it enables them to be able to graze on what little leaf cover they can find now, as well as not have to walk too far to water. This water has travelled 7 kilometers from the borehole near the dam to the top of the hill and into the big reservoir, and then the big reservoir gravity feeds the farm. This is the furthest point that we have. It's about 7 kilometers from the house. This is the Spandau dip tank. Again, part of our agreement with the community was to assist them with resources to look after their livestock. With this dip tank built in the early 80s, it's since obviously run dry, it's cracked, it's in a bit of bad shape. They asked us to assist with repairing it. They didn't want us to build a new one. They asked us to repair the old one. So we've brought water from the top of the hill, 7 k's, and we'll start shortly with replastering and fixing the cracks on the inside. Once that's done, the community will be able to look after their own livestock by dipping them when they need to, by using the crush to dehorn and to follow all the other animal husbandry practices that will improve the livestock and the quality of their livestock. From very early on, we realized that a big factor to draw animals back into the property and to be able to have the animals grow was water. So we looked at a map and we chose some key spots to put these water holes in. This is Bush Pig Pan. It's the first water hole that we put in on the property. Since then we built another 5, and after that we've got another 2 to go. All fed from a central borehole that's gravity fed from the top of the hill.
When putting in our new water points, we've been laying the pipelines along our existing roads so that we can easily pick up breakages from elephant when they dig and pull the pipes up. It's much easier again to pick it, is to find the breaks and to get there to repair it.
All of the troughs are used by zebra, giraffe, wildebeest, kudu, impala, hyenas, leopards. Of late, we've also had a lot of elephant come in as it's getting dry.
Since we've started, we've actually expanded a little bit now. And we're now in a situation where our neighbours are approaching us and wanting to become involved with the wildlife. They've heard firsthand how people are benefiting from the sustainable hunting with wildlife, and they're now wanting to be included in the project.
When the Johnson brothers, Guav and Courtney, partnered with the communal land residents who had long struggled with poverty and limited resources, something remarkable began to take shape. Together, they're transforming this rugged terrain into a flourishing wildlife reserve. But this isn't a story of displacement or exclusion. Instead, it's a tale of shared vision and mutual benefit. While the wildlife numbers have increased, the local community hasn't been neglected. This is conservation with a human heart, a model recognizing that protecting wildlife and supporting communities aren't competing goals, but complementary ones.
Behind me we have the Mbakwe Dam. It's on a piece of land owned by the Catholic Church, the Mbakwe Mission. This piece of land has got this beautiful dam and is included in the first stage of fencing that we've done building up our project. We've got the hunting rights on this piece of land. Right now it's the only source of water for many miles. The smaller dams have all dried up, so it holds good water. But in the last 4 years we've managed to take over all the security here. So we do all the anti-poaching patrols. We've managed to stop the netting, and obviously there's also no cattle on the majority of the area around the dam, so all the vegetation has come back, the grass, the reeds, the water birds have built up, and even the dam water is way clearer now, and the fish are a good size. there's a section of the dam where the community can come and fish with rod and hook, so they're still able to benefit from the fish, and the fish are way better now. But this is an important part of our area. Although it's only a small piece of land, the dam is very valuable to us. Just behind me, there's a corridor of about 300 meters that is fenced down to the water so that the local community can bring their cattle down and they can also fish. Here we are at one of the two community gardens. We drilled a borehole here 3 years ago. We were fortunate to get good water. This is a very dry, arid region. And then we set up a water tank and a solar pump which fills the tank, and then it's gravity fed down onto the garden and the orchard. In the past, the only water available here was by digging in the sand, which comes from the river here, which made it very difficult and time consuming. So this has helped a hell of a lot. How long does it take for the tank to fill when there's langa, there's lots of sun?
It's 1 hour, 1 hour 90 minutes to 2 hours.
To fill the tank from empty?
Yeah, from empty. So this is another group. Tomorrow is another group.
Okay.
We divide them into 2 groups.
Okay.
Because we say do all one time.
Too much?
Too much
for the water.
for the water. So we decided to divide them into 2 groups.
Okay. The next issue we're facing now is the tank is not big enough to be able to irrigate the orchard and all the vegetable beds. So we're going to need to erect another stand and another tank so they don't have to wait whilst the tank refills. So a couple of months ago we had an incident where some thieves came in and removed the water pump, and the community guys got hold of me and reported the incident. So I said to them, well, it's actually your pump, so you need to deal with it. You've got to get it replaced or make a plan. So the elders here got hold of the local witch doctor, and he was brought in, and some spells and so on were laid. And the next morning when they came back to the garden here, everything had been replaced. The pump and the piping that had been stolen was laid back on the ground. So we were able to just reconnect it again. But yeah, that's what happened, yeah. Yeah, so here we're starting an orchard. So far we've got in grapefruit, oranges, lemons, mangoes, guava, lime, avocado. That's what we've got in so far, and we're going to extend all the way up to the fence. We're going to put a couple more trees in. We planted these trees, they're grafted trees, and we planted them in November last year, about October, November last year. That tree's actually got two limes on it already. So probably in another 4 or 5 years, this will be a thriving little orchard. Where we're situated here, obviously the elephant do come through here, so it is a risk that we take. But fortunately, most of the movement is a little bit further south of here, so hopefully we don't get too much damage from elephant in the garden here.